My fiancée cheated and said I'd never find someone like her. A year later, I'm dating a model who had a crush on me since high school. So, when going around Reddit the other day, I came across this post about a guy whose girlfriend was cheating on him and didn't care. She was absolutely honest about it, as if it were no big deal. It was insane, and it made me think about my ex-girlfriend. I haven't told many people about this incident, mostly because it's long and, well, it was unpleasant at the time. But after reading that post, I thought, what the heck, I might as well give it a chance. Keep in mind that this occurred approximately 2 years ago. I met my ex, let's call her Chloe, through a dating app. It wasn't one of those applications seeking a quick hookup. It was one of the more serious ones, with people reportedly hoping for a relationship. Anyway, at the time, I was 33 and she was 30. We matched, chatted, and there was an instant connection. It's difficult to explain, but we just understood each other. We shared the same sense of humor, interests, and could talk for hours without becoming bored. It was very refreshing. After a few weeks of online and phone conversations, I eventually invited her out on an actual date. I was a little nervous, to be honest, because she was so lovely. I mean breathtakingly stunning. I am not suggesting I am a troll or anything. I think I'm a decent-looking guy, but she was clearly in a different league. I remember thinking at the time that I probably wouldn't be looking for anything serious with her because, girls like that usually have a lot of options. I did not want to have my heart broken. Being with someone who is overly attractive is a strange problem, I know, but it can provide its own set of challenges. Anyway, she agreed to the date, and we had a great time. It just validated everything I felt during our internet conversations. We started seeing each other more frequently after that, and it became formal very quickly. One thing that was continually on my mind was how much attention she received from other men. She would tell me about it occasionally, even when we were together. A guy would shamelessly hit on her in front of me, or she'd receive messages from guys via social media. At first, I wasn't concerned by it. I trusted her. I got the impression that she wasn't interested in anyone else and was truly interested in me. Stupid, I know, but that's how I felt at the moment. I was simply enjoying being with her, and I didn't want to be the jealous, insecure lover. Things were going great, really great, except for one tiny item that kept lingering in my mind. We were having one of those crazy late-night chats where you speak about random things, and the subject of hall passes came up. If you're not familiar with the term, it refers to a hypothetical situation in which you and your partner each got to choose one celebrity with whom you would be allowed to sleep, no questions asked. It's meant to be a jest, a bit of fun, but it can occasionally expose some underlying sentiments. Anyway, she brought it up, which struck me as weird. Usually, I'm the one who initiates such silly chats. She said her hall pass was Justin Timberlake, which is fair enough. He's a nice-looking guy. But then she said something that really resonated with me. She added, I don't think there are many celebrities who would say no to me, with a slight smirk, as if she was entirely serious. Now, I knew she was beautiful, I had always known that, but hearing her say it in that way simply rubbed me wrong. She seemed to be accepting that she could have pretty much any guy she wanted, which made me uneasy. It seemed out of character for her too. Despite her outward appearance, she had always been quite approachable. It just felt arrogant. It made me feel uneasy. I said nothing at the moment. I just laughed it off and we went on to the next issue. But the comment persisted in the back of my mind. I kept thinking about it throughout the next few days. The feeling vanished, and things returned to normal, but I never forgot about it. The shift in her behavior, things were going really well for a while after the hall pass chat, but then I noticed a shift in her behavior. It was faint at first, but as time passed, it grew increasingly clear. She began arriving home later than usual. Normally, she'd arrive home from work about 6 p.m., but she began arriving at 7 p.m., maybe 7:30, or even later. And what were the arguments she gave? They were basically lame excuses. She'd say things like, oh, I just lost track of time, or, I ran into a friend and we chatted for a bit. It was strange because she used to be so thorough about her day. If she was late due to work, she'd tell me everything, what project she was working on, who she spoke with, and so on. Now, it was simply these vague, meaningless reasons. On top of that, she became quite irritable. If I inquired why she was late, she would snap at me. She'd become defensive, claiming I was being overly controlling or that I didn't trust her. I didn't want to fight, so I usually backed away. I am not a confrontational person, especially when someone is already in a foul attitude. However, the late nights persisted, as did the nebulous reasons. My suspicion began to deepen. It was like a small voice in the back of my head saying, something's not right here. I tried to ignore it, but it became increasingly difficult. confrontations and denials. Finally, I asked her if there was anything wrong. I said, "Is everything okay? You seem different lately?" She denied it, of course. She responded, "No, everything's fine. I'm just stressed with work." The usual. I wanted to believe her. I actually did. A few days passed, and the same things happened. I couldn't keep it in anymore. I informed her again that her behavior was unusual and that I was concerned. This time, she appeared to understand what I was saying. In reality, she apologized, claiming that it was all due to stress and exhaustion and insisting that it was nothing personal. I got what she was saying. But I couldn't get myself to believe it. The fake explanations after that chat, things appeared to improve, at least on the surface. She was more receptive and conversational. When she got home late, she'd tell me stories about what she'd been doing. But they simply felt hollow. There was something about the way she told them, the lack of information, the avoidance of eye contact, that didn't feel right. I remember one particular night. She arrived home late and told me a story about running into an old coworker and having drinks with him. And I knew she was lying. It was like a light bulb went out in my head. I can't describe it, but I received the overpowering impression that she was hiding something really important. And that's when the thought occurred to me. She was having an affair. It wasn't just a minor issue or misunderstanding. This was a full-blown affair. I knew I couldn't simply let it go. I couldn't pretend everything was fine. I needed to discover the truth, one way or another. Her conduct had shifted dramatically from the woman I first met. It was impossible to ignore. This was not the person I had fell for before. Something was clearly wrong, and I was determined to find out what it was. The plan. Okay, I'm sitting there, convinced that my girlfriend is cheating on me. My initial thought was, I need to check her phone. I mean, that's where all the proof should be, right? Text messages, emails, social media, everything. But I quickly knew it wouldn't work. First and foremost, she was always on her phone, making it very impossible to take it away long enough to conduct a thorough search. Even if I did comprehend it, I'm not exactly a tech expert. I wouldn't know where or what to look for, and she'd probably removed anything damning anyhow. Plus, I needed proof. I didn't want to locate a questionable text message and then confront her with it. I wanted to catch her in the act, to know without a doubt. So I decided to take a different way. Hire a private investigator. Yeah, I understand. It seems like something out of a film, but I was desperate. I needed the truth. And I wanted someone who knew what they were doing to guide me to it. I wanted to know who this guy was and where they were meeting. I conducted a Google search for private investigators in my area and discovered one with positive reviews. I contacted them up and scheduled a meeting. I remember being quite scared when I walked into their office. It seemed like I was accepting defeat. I sat down with the investigator, a guy who appeared to have seen it all before, and told him everything. I recounted the entire event, from the hallway conversation to the late nights and lame explanations. It took a while, but he just listened calmly and nodded. He made no judgments about me. He did not make me feel foolish. He was just listening. Then he stated he'd seen this type of thing 100 times before. He preferred to do surveillance for 2 weeks because her late nights were variable, but this would be somewhat costly. We ultimately agreed on 10 days. I gave him all of her contact information, including her phone number, email address, and where she worked. Before I departed, he told me not to contact him until the 10 days were up, unless it was an emergency. It'll be difficult, he told me, but you need to let me do my job. I agreed. I knew it would be torment, but I had to believe him. The longest 10 days of my life. These 10 days were among the longest of my life. It was awful to know that this investigator was following my fiancée and could unearth proof that confirmed my darkest concerns. I felt helpless, just waiting, wondering, and thinking all kinds of possibilities. It was difficult to focus on anything else. Work was a nightmare. I could not sleep. I barely ate. And the worst part? Throughout the 10 days, she consistently arrived home late. 3 times, she arrived home after 9 p.m., using the same tired, pathetic justifications. Oh, I had last-minute plans with some friends. Traffic was terrible. She had no idea that every time she said those things, it further confirmed my suspicions that she was lying. Each time she was late, I thought, okay, this is it? This is when the investigator will catch her. It simply offered him more opportunities to get the evidence I required. The truth comes out. Finally, the 10-day period ended. The investigator phoned me precisely on time. He didn't say much over the phone, just that he had the information I needed and asked if we could meet in person. I answered, yes, absolutely. This was something I needed to hear face to face. I couldn't bear hearing this kind of news over the phone. I had been waiting for what seemed like an eternity, and I needed to see his expression to know for certain that what he was telling me was true. I drove to his office, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. I felt terrible to my stomach. When I stepped in, he was sitting with a manila envelope on the desk in front of him. He motioned for me to sit down. Then he asked if I wanted him to simply explain what he discovered or if I wanted to examine the contents of the package myself. I said I wanted to hear it from him first. I thought it would soften the blow a little. In my brain, I compared it to walking in on your partner cheating and having a moment to brace yourself before the gut punch. He took a big breath and replied, "Your suspicions were correct." Just like that. There's no avoiding the issue. There's no sugarcoating it. He informed me that he had followed her to an apartment building 3 times. She went in alone and left about 2 hours later, always with the same man. He had obtained the apartment number and the individual's name. Cody. Obviously, I'm changing the name. To be honest, my initial thought was that I wanted to find this Cody person, and let's just say I was not thinking peacefully. But then I realized this wasn't the point. The point was that my girlfriend, the lady I adored, had deceived me. That's what I needed to concentrate on. The investigator slid the envelope across the desk. I opened it. And there they were. Pictures. Photos of her and this Cody guy in front of the apartment building. Embracing, holding hands, kissing, in front of her car. Everything was there, in black and white. Unquestionable proof. I almost lost my mind. I almost broke down right there in his office. It was one thing to suspect something, to have a gut instinct. But seeing it with my own eyes was a very different experience. The visual evidence was very overwhelming. I managed to keep back tears, although it was difficult. It wasn't just the affair, it was the realization that my entire life, the future I had planned with her, was falling in front of me. The confrontation, I wasn't sure what to do next, but I knew I had to get to the bottom of this. I was about to confront her. When I arrived home, I asked her to sit down. I did not yell. I didn't create a scene. I said quietly, "We need to talk." She was aware that something was off. She saw it on my face. She sat down, and I simply lay everything out. I informed her I knew about the affair. I told her I'd hired a private investigator. I informed her that I had proof. Her first emotion was shock. She simply stared at me, her mouth slightly wide. Then she attempted to calm down, to act as if nothing had happened. But I wouldn't have it. I told her what the investigator told me. About the residential building. About Cody. Everything. And she simply sat there. Silent. She did not refute it. She did not apologize. She did not even attempt to explain. She just sat there listening. The more I talked, the angrier I became. Her silence was infuriating. She didn't seem to care, or to be sorry for what she'd done. Finally, I could not take it any longer. I told her I wanted to break up. I responded, "I can't do this anymore, I can't keep playing this song and dance, I'm done." And then, she did something very unexpected. She laughed. She stepped up as if to frighten me and began this full monologue. "You want to leave me?" she inquired. "Are you kidding? So what?" I had a little bit of excitement on the side. It was just physical, it didn't mean anything. I'm a cheater, fair. But where do you think you'll go from here? Do you think you'll ever get someone like me again? Hasn't it been clear to you over the years that I'm out of your league? It was one time, is that what you want to destroy our lives over? She spoke a lot more in that vein, essentially attempting to make me feel lucky. That I should simply be grateful to be with her, even if she cheated. Can you believe it? I was stunned. I knew she was arrogant, I knew she thought well of herself. However, this was a whole new level. This was not a sincere apology. This was hardly the reaction of someone who had been caught and wanted to make amends. This was the response of someone who didn't give a damn. Someone having a genuine F-it attitude. A true crash-out mentality. It seemed as if her ideal scenario was for me to simply accept that she was too good for me, that she would do whatever she pleased, and that I should be content to be along for the trip. She honestly believed I wouldn't have the courage to leave. That's how proud she was of herself. Her comments struck me like a ton of bricks. I'd felt wounded and outraged before, but this was different. This was pure fury. I'd never felt anything like it. I stood up, looked her directly in the eyes, and told her how much I detested her. I don't remember the precise words, but they were along those lines. And then I walked out. I didn't bring a bag. I did not say farewell. I simply stepped out the door. I couldn't bear to be in the same room as her for another second. I felt completely betrayed. It was over. The aftermath: I ended up staying the night in a cheap motel. I couldn't return to the house, not yet. I just needed to be alone and contemplate all that had transpired. I laid there in that uncomfortable bed, staring at the ceiling, rehearsing the confrontation in my mind over and over. I couldn't believe the way she reacted. It was simply unbelievable. The next day, I returned to the house to get some of my belongings. I assumed she would be at work. But she was present. She appeared to have been crying, but she was attempting to play tough, as if nothing was wrong. And then, get this. She had the nerve to reply, "I knew you'd be back," with a smug little grin on her face. As if I had just thrown a small tantrum and crawled back to her. I didn't say anything. I just went inside and grabbed some clothes, toiletries, and other necessities. I knew I couldn't acquire everything at once, but all I wanted was to get out of there as soon as possible. I replied, "I'll be back for the rest of my stuff later." She just stood there staring at me, her face filled with disbelief. As if she couldn't believe I was leaving. She said nothing till I was walking out the door. Then she merely whispered something under her breath, which I didn't catch. And frankly, I didn't mind. I've been trying to understand why she acted the way she did. I'm still having trouble wrapping my head around it. Perhaps she was looking for validation or excitement outside of our relationship. Perhaps she was insecure about becoming older or about our routine. Perhaps she regarded me as a safe, dependable, cuddly husband, but also as someone who she considered beneath her. And perhaps because she had always felt that way, she did not consider the infidelity to be a huge problem. She'd already rationalized it in her mind. Of course, all of this is just me guessing, attempting to make sense of something that does not make sense. The aftermath. After I departed, she began contacting me. The first few messages were mocking and caustic, as if she thought the whole thing was a joke and that I would just run back to her. She definitely believed I was lying. That I would not go through with leaving, but, a few days later, I returned to the house with a friend to retrieve the remainder of my possessions. And she was shocked. She could not believe I was being serious. I believe it was the moment she realized it was truly over. One of her final texts to me read, "I hope you know you'll never find anyone like me again." Seriously? I blocked her after that. I couldn't take it anymore. It was simply too much. Moving on. Okay, let's skip ahead a bit. The whole breakup with Chloe was a shambles, and it took me a bit to get my bearings. But life continues, right? A few months later, I had my 15-year high school reunion. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to go, but a number of my friends persuaded me. It ended up being a great time. It was nice to see all the old faces and meet up with people I hadn't seen in years. Just a really upbeat, enjoyable vibe. And then, there was Veronica. Enter Veronica. Veronica attended my high school class. She was a tall, stunningly beautiful girl. We were cordial and took some classes together, but we were not particularly close. She was one of those girls who was just naturally cool, you know? After high school, she became a model, and a rather successful one at that. I had seen her in some magazines and internet advertisements. If you're into fashion, you may recognize her name. I hadn't spoken to her in at least 7 years, possibly more. So I'm at the reunion, having a nice time, when I realize that Veronica isn't present. However, her best friend from high school was. They were still really close, which I thought was fantastic. It demonstrated that Veronica had not changed much despite her success. I went over to see her friend just to say hello and catch up. We were talking, and she kept a wide smile on her face the entire time. When I named Veronica, her smile grew even wider. She made a face and continued, "I know she's going to kill me for telling you this, but, you know she's always had a crush on you?" I just chuckled. I mean, come on. Veronica, a successful model, have a crush on me? It appeared utterly ludicrous. Even in high school, we didn't run in the same circles. We were friendly, but not more. There was no way. Also, becoming a model now? There's no chance. It was flattering, of course, to think that someone like her would find me beautiful. But I assumed that was just a high school event that she'd long forgotten about. I told her buddy that I didn't think Veronica remembered me, but she insisted. She explained that Veronica had requested her to check me out at the reunion to see if I still looked as nice as I did in high school. And then she continued. "She's still into you, so if you're single and you're not scared of girls with baggage, you might as well give it a shot." I spent the remainder of the night reflecting on the talk. It was all so unexpected. I won't lie, it felt wonderful to know that someone like Veronica was interested in me, especially after what had occurred with Chloe. It felt as if here was this woman whom my ex would have deemed out of my league, and she was allegedly crushing on me. It made me understand how useless Chloe's remarks were, and how much she wanted to bring me down. It provided a significant confidence boost. Taking a chance. Following the reconnection, I decided to take a chance. I figured, what could I lose? I decided to contact Veronica online, as the kids say. I found her on Instagram and messaged her. I also informed Veronica's friend that I was going to message her in case she did not check her direct messages from people she did not follow. I did not want my message to be lost in the mix. And then I waited. And waited. And waited. I waited 5 days and heard nothing. I'd completely forgotten about it, to be honest. I believed she was probably busy, or that her buddy had exaggerated things. I wasn't too concerned about it. But, ultimately, she replied. And her message was quite enthusiastic. She wrote, "Oh my gosh, Keith. It's been so long. Now, I've heard that the more letters a woman repeats in her text to you, the more she likes you. I'm not sure if it is accurate, but it felt like a good sign." We began messaging back and forth, catching up on pretty much everything. We spoke about high school. About what we have been up to since then. About our jobs. Our families. Everything. After a few days, Veronica recommended we switch to FaceTime. She claimed she was tired of typing so much. I was delighted, of course, and we began making video chats virtually every day. A deeper connection. During those video talks, I began to understand more about her life as a model. She told me everything about the industry, the travel, the photo shoots, the ups and downs. She was in Brussels at the time, working on a campaign, and even gave me some photos from the set. That was fascinating. And it was awesome to watch her in her environment. It also allowed us to connect on a deeper level while being thousands of miles apart. After a few weeks of almost daily communication, it began to seem like we were dating. We hadn't formally called it that, but it seemed like more than simply friendship. So, I decided to be a little corny and simply ask her, "What are we?" She chuckled and said we were really wonderful friends, but she wanted to be more. I saw this as a cue to ask her if she wanted to be my girlfriend. She quickly agreed. With no hesitation. It was a wonderful feeling. The long-distance challenge. Obviously, the long-distance aspect was challenging. She was a model traveling the world, while I was here doing my regular work. I had a long-distance relationship when I was younger, and I despised it. It was difficult to maintain that connection, to feel like you were truly a part of each other's lives. But this was different. This was Veronica, and she was already so important to me that I was willing to go to any length to make it work. So I booked a flight to Brussels to see her. She was going to be there for a few weeks working on a project, so I decided it was the perfect time to see her and get a taste of her culture. The trip that changed everything. The trip was just stunning. Brussels was beautiful, of course, but being there with Veronica was incredible. It seemed like a dream come true. It taught me that I shouldn't give up on love because of a single negative experience, that there were still excellent people out there, people worth the effort. She even brought me to one of her photo shoots. I got to watch her work, see her in her element, cheer her on from the sidelines, and take some of my own photos. It was so great to watch her doing what she loved, and it made me feel even more connected to her, as if I were truly a part of her life. The Instagram mishap. So I was in Brussels, having the time of my life with Veronica. I took a lot of photos during the photo shoot and decided to share a few of them on Instagram. I didn't upload them to my main feed, though. Instead, I shared them on my close friend's story, expecting just a limited group of individuals to view them. Here's the thing. I completely forgot about my ex, Chloe, who was still on my close friends list. I rarely use Instagram, so I didn't think to block her there. I had blocked her everywhere else, but not Instagram. A big mistake. I received a message from her just a few hours after posting the photos. Remember, we hadn't spoken in almost a year by this point. The message stated, "Who's that? Why are you playing groupie?" A laughing emoji appears next. I quietly responded, "That's my girlfriend." I said nothing else. She did not respond right away. I could see the little typing sign emerge and disappear several times over the following 10 minutes, as if she was writing something, deleting it, and then writing something new. Finally, she only sent a snarky message. Sure. The final goodbye. That's when I decided to try it. I informed her that she didn't have to trust me. Then I said, "If you thought you were out of my league, then Veronica is out of this world." I also questioned her. "How's your man from back then doing?" I knew it would sting. She read the message, but did not respond. And then I blocked her on Instagram. I realize it was probably petty of me to say those things. But really? I believed she earned it. And I did not want her to have any further access to my life. Any more opportunities to get under my skin? Even yet, I'll admit that I was curious about her reaction. I'll admit it. Happy ever after? And that, my friends, concludes the story. It's been an exciting voyage, to say the least. But I can honestly tell that I am happier than I have ever been. Veronica and I have been dating happily ever since our vacation to Brussels. And I won't lie, I'm thinking about proposing before the end of the year. Don't tell her, however. Veronica is a true blessing in my life. She is kind, she's funny, she is intelligent, she's stunning, both inside and out. And she makes me feel like the luckiest man in the world. I am really relieved that things did not work out with Chloe, because if they had, I would not have met Veronica. I understand that some people may criticize me. Could respond, oh, he's just with her because she's a model. Thus, long distance never works. But I don't care. I refuse to let anyone's criticism spoil my relationship with Veronica. She is great, and I'm quite thrilled. If things don't work out, you may come back here and tell me I told you so. But God knows, I don't see me penning another piece here. So, that's it. That is my story. It's a story of treachery, heartbreak, and eventually finding love and happiness in the most unexpected places. Thank you for listening. Reading, I suppose. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.